Hey guys, it's Justin again with Gunpla for Cheap Bastards. It's going to be a three-part series. The first part we covered tools and supplies required to do base assembly of the model kit. This time we're going to cover tools and things required to, kind of take that one step further. And we're going to do some simple modifications that will improve the look of your Gunpla. If you still don't want to paint, you can still do some of these things and some of these tricks, and it'll just make your kit stand out a little bit better. It'll make them look a little nicer, and you don't really have to spend a lot of money to get a better looking kit. So we're going to move this down here, and we have the arm. We're going to seam remove this. From the front, it doesn't look that bad, but it's still one of those things that just kind of needs to be done. Because the back end looks really bad. See, they covered it up with a seam line here, so you can just kind of seam it up and it's not a big deal, but on the back it's kind of a little different. So when we left last time, our budget was at $35. We're going to go ahead and add 15 to that because we are going to add this. So that puts us at $50, I think. 35. Yeah. So this is Tamiya's extra thin cement. You don't have to use the extra thin. If you prefer to use the thicker stuff, that's fine as well. There's like Plastrux JB Weld. It does the same thing. It's just thicker. Whatever works with your preference. I like the thin cement better. Even though it has a tendency to run, it dries fairly quickly, and it gives me enough time to put it down that I can put down a couple quick layers of it and just work with it. So this is what it looks like split open. You can definitely see the seam now on the front part. They kind of offset them by like a half a millimeter so that they can put the panel line on one side of it. It doesn't go through the middle. But there's the back side of the piece, and we're going to seam the whole thing. So what I'm going to do is just kind of very gently kind of nudge that up so there's a really, really, really small gap. And I'm going to zoom this in so you guys can actually see it, hopefully. I don't think you're going to see what exactly happens, but we're just going to take the glue, put it in, or take the applicator out. There's a little applicator, and you're literally just going to touch that seam line, and that is going to cause the glue to flow at least part way through that seam. Flip it over and get the other side. And then you squeeze it. It's pretty straightforward. Now you'll notice that the glue immediately starts seeping out of the seam, and that's good. Some plastic will come out with it, also fine. Same thing with the other side, not as much. We didn't put as much glue on the other side, but that seam is still welded, and this part of the seam is mostly hidden anyway, so it's not a big deal. But what I also like to do is I'll take this, I'll squeeze it, and then I'll take the applicator and I'll dry most of the glue off on the edge of the lid, and I'll just run that up the middle one last time, just to make sure that there's glue on the surface as well as in the seam, so that everything can bond together. I usually like to let that sit for about 20-30 minutes at least before I touch it. If not, leave it overnight. The longer you let it sit, the better, because it has more time to cure up and set, and be good to go. Here's one that I've done already. This is the shield, or the gun, or whatever this thing is, and it's got the seam running across. You can see that It's all dried up. I think I can get the camera. You see the little bubbles right along that edge. So all you gotta do, you take your sandpaper. Again, this is 800 grit. You want to just dip that in a little bit of water. Again, water does not go on the budget. Everybody who can build model kits can build water, should have water, I would hope. And you just very gently, man, the camera's fighting me today. Very gently just go along that edge. Now, the water thing isn't necessary. I like to do it because it reduces some of the friction that goes on your plastic, and it'll cause less discoloration and things like that. A lot of people also like to put like a drop of soap in the water. I picked that up from my friend Steve. And that further reduces the friction between the plastic and the thing, or the sandpaper. So you're still going to remove any unevenness, but you know, it's not going to discolor your plastic too much. But there we go, that's mostly done. I gotta touch it up a couple spots, but most of the bubble marks are gone. So I gotta get the other side, and I gotta get the back and all that. But we're looking good. So I'm gonna leave that there, and I'll finish it up later. The next thing we're gonna talk about, again, I was gonna use the age 3 for this, but I did it before off camera, so I can't exactly undo it and then show you. So this is the head of the hazel. Most high grades, especially the older or the newer ones, will come with these little tabs on the V-fin. What you're gonna do is just take a pair of cutters and cut most of that off. Don't cut it all off, but line up the bottom with where the V-fin is supposed to end, and just go up just a hair, not even a millimeter, just go up a hair and just cut that off. You want to leave a little bit of it, something like that. Now you can't really tell it's there. I mean, oh no, you can tell, but you know, it's not ridiculously evident. That's what what I'm trying to drive home here. And again, you just take that sandpaper and you just very gently, you can lay it down if you want to do that. Just gently smooth that surface out. And the lower grit sandpaper you're working with for something like this, the more plastic you're going to remove, and that's fine if you want to budget yourself for more sandpaper. The budget thing is just there to add and subtract as you see fit. So if you don't want to paint, you don't have to worry about budgeting for paint. If you don't want to seam remove, you don't have to budget for cement, things like that. So you basically take that, you'll sand it down, and then it's gone. So super smooth. And then you can further take this sandpaper and just kind of go in different directions with it, sand down all the other faces, and that will sharpen that V-fin a little bit so it looks a little better. I think the sharp V-fin looks really good, and I think it really helps sell that this is a mobile suit and not a toy, essentially. Not to say that Gunpla is toys, but you can't argue that the fact that you can play with it when you're done with it doesn't, help that argument. And there we go. So the V-fin looks a lot nicer. It looks a little bit more presentable. It doesn't look so childlike in presentation. Now the last thing that we need to talk about is a pretty simple mod, and this is for removing the faceplate. Now this kit is actually really not that bad. The seam line is there, you can see it, but it's really not as bad as I expected it to be, especially for an older kit. But the seam line for the age 3 is particularly bad. You can see that all the way. So there's two ways you can go about doing this. The first one is a little more complicated, and it's a little harder, and it works just fine. That's actually what I had to do for the new RX kit because of the way that I did the LEDs. I couldn't remove the head because everything was kind of assembled together. But what you're going to do is disassemble the head, and you can either take this little piece here, prime it up, paint this all separate, put this together, put this back together, put like a little piece of like masking tape under here, and then seam this up, close it up real tight, and then paint the outside of the head after you've seamed everything up. And then when you come back, you just very carefully take that masking tape off and everything's painted. Or I want to say a very large portion of high grades will have this tab instead of using like a different method to mount the head. Most of them come with this tab, and what you're going to do is literally just cut this tab off. There's not really any rocket science to it. You just cut it off. Then you take this, you take the tab, you plug it into the head, and you can see that there's still the plastic left. So I basically cut that little strip off the top, and this will sit like that. And the reason you plug this in is it stops the head from going higher than it needs to. Put these together. You seam this head up, and then when you paint this and you paint this, you just slide the head in. Put a drop of super glue in, and good as new. The head just pops in and out just like that. So, super easy mod to do. Super, it looks 10 times better when you can paint the face and not have to go, oh no, I'm painting with spray cans. I have to be super precise with what I'm doing now. You just cut that little tab off and you glue it in, and it creates a stopper for the head itself, and you're good to go. Doesn't take any more brain power than that. So this has been episode 2. With the third episode, we are going to cover painting. We're going to cover how to paint. We're going to paint this thing. We're going to talk about how I'm going to paint this thing. And that's, pretty much going to be the end of the series. I might do a gallery separate so that you guys can see what everything looks like. But I got pretty lucky with the kit. I didn't really do any research or anything like that before I started. I just kind of picked something that I had that looked good, that I thought would be interesting. But this is what I've got. I've started to separate everything, and again, like I said, we're going to be hand painting this. So if you want to pick up a little bit of hand painting technique, stick around. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Later.